Good evening. It is 7 o'clock and it is the February 11th meeting of the North Bennington Village Trustees. Our first order of business is to acknowledge public attendance and amend the agenda if required. We do have in attendance, I believe, the Corey family. Ed Corey and family, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You indicated you wanted to leave some materials?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a certificate to occupy the apartment that Mark was staying at. So I think
Are these official documents or are these your documents?
they're recorded in the town of Bennington.
Okay. And
I'm the treasurer, so you can go ahead and keep yours. I don't need it.
It's
I don't
public
need it.
information.
Right, I don't need it. It's okay. Thank you.
all right.
And we'll leave those for anyone who wants. And there's one for Matthew Harrison.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Stay warm out there. Oh, Matthew is joining in. All right. Matthew is joined. We have some materials that Mr. Corey left. And we will proceed with our agenda. So the first thing is to review and approve. That door did not close.
Okay.
Oh, you got it. Hold enough. We don't need that door open. Review and approve the minutes of January 7th. Those minutes had been sent out a couple of times. So are there any questions, comments, concerns?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minute.
All right, that's Scott's motion.
Yeah, I second.
Seconded by Tara.
Sorry, I was reading.
I will assume no further questions because no one asked questions ahead of time. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We can then move to review the warrant and payment of bills. Doug, please take these in any order you wish.
I will do the payroll first. So we have the payroll warrant, which covers the month of January, which was a 3 pay period. So you'll see 3 pay cycles on here. The total is $23,669.32. Nothing out of the ordinary. The one thing that I will note, and I'm kind of playing with this to see how it's going to show, is you'll see weekly the VEMRs, which
Okay.
is a deduction. Now, part of that goes to employer and part goes to employee. This is the total. So on the detail, it does break it out. So I think that's how I'm going to keep it. We can kind of look at it as we go and make decisions.
I think the total should be sufficient.
That's what I
Yeah.
thought too. So, okay, so that's how we'll keep that. But like I said, the detail will break down what the village contribution is versus what is a wage contribution. So yeah, other than that, everything else is the same. So $23,669.32.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Lori, did you get that? Scott's motion, Tara's second. Any questions? Seeing none immediately, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Yep, absolutely. I've got copies of all. I will take the late January warrant next. The total for that was $19,234.65. A few of the highlights on there. Treasurer State of Vermont, that is a lease check for the process. Express copy, that is for the annual reports. And Cargill Incorporated is de-icer. Obviously, American Rock Salt is salt. Blue Cross Blue Shield is the quarterly payment for that. And other than that, everything is pretty straightforward. Those are the larger items out there. So unless there's any other questions, that is the late January.
Okay. Questions? Did everybody get a chance to review this when they were sent out? I have no questions. Thank you for describing the major items.
Move to approve.
Motion by Tara,
Second?
second by Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and that leads us to the February warrant. The total on that one is 32,894.31. And, oh, yeah. I'll just give you both.
Okay.
Pass at the same time. Some of the items on here, the larger, out of the ordinary ones, RHR Smith and Company, that is the village's audit firm. That is the first, they are billing what's called progressively. I'll go over the audit process where we are a little bit later in my report, but that's what that is for. NEMRIC is our annual commitment. They are our tax billing software company that we use. Meadow Farm Equipment, that was parts or labor or things for the Toro, and Norm can chime in if he needs to about that. Greater Heights, that was for work on Park Street. Again, Cargill, de-icer, and then Apache Salt and American Rock Salt is obviously self-explanatory. So unless there's any other questions, that is the February one.
Thank you, Doug. Questions from the crew?
No,
Motion to approve.
Motion by Tara,
Second?
second by Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Moving right along, well ahead of schedule. Oops, gotta get back to my agenda. Norm, the floor is yours. Tell us what we need to know.
Okay, so, hang on, let's see. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, so, pretty much, we're into our winter process. Obviously, winter decided to come late this year, but it's certainly, caught up as it's going, and, if you've read all the articles online and in the news, you've seen on Channel 10, there's a huge salt shortage. We're doing okay. We were pretty low at one point, dangerously low at one point, but we've recovered and, hopefully we have enough to make it. There's some on order. I dropped a bill off today to Lori. If, it didn't get included in this warrant, I would certainly, request another late warrant. We don't want any excuses for salt to not be paid, for them to go somewhere else. We're too small.
So,
So,
Norm, it did not get on tonight's warrant, but I also got 3 more in the mail today. Cause you
Yep.
have a couple different companies. So I have about 4 salt bills that I just got today. So, Doug and I'll get together and make sure those get paid.
Does Norm see the other salt bills so he's aware and could verify quantities received, et cetera?
Well, Norm gives me the pick ticket and I wait
Okay.
until I get the
All
bill.
right, perfect.
yeah, some of them come in differently, like Appalachia, that gets emailed to me. So I print that out and, I usually forward it to Doug and Lori, but I also print it out.
Yep.
And that's, so anyways, we wanna
Anyway,
make sure
I
we
got
stay on
American
top of
Rock
those.
salt. American Rock, I got a couple of those today,
Yep,
and Appalachia. So,
yep. And the Cargill should be somewhere in the pile.
I think Cargill is being paid tonight, but
Yeah, there was 2 Cargills. There was one that was on late January and then a second one that was on for February.
Yeah, there's another one coming.
Okay.
And probably, we'll see how this week goes out, be another one behind that, but.
Yep.
It is what it is, you know what I mean? We're working hard on that. We started cleaning up piles around town. We've got on Holton Street, we've got on Sage Street. Got down through there, started widening out the roads that are being very small. Pretty much every day is moving snow somewhere. So that's where we're at.
But our roads in North Bennington always seem great, so thank you, and Kyle.
And I walked up from my house to here and the sidewalks are in great shape, given
Good.
given the cold weather. So,
Yeah, we work hard on him. He'll be out on Main Street tomorrow. I gotta go to Fort Ann to get a truck fixed, warranty job, but, he'll get the things off of the Kevin side of Main Street. The other side seems to be the son's taking care of it, so we're just gonna let that go on the car side, dealership side. But where everybody parks, in their high traffic areas, that's what we're working on, so. Pretty much that's about it. We've got a meeting this week with the, intersection, by the library to work on that. I've met with one homeowner on Church Street who called me after we sent out the mailing about the proposed sidewalk and talked to her. She was just questioning about a telephone pole. And I believe there is another lot there that doesn't show up. She's gonna show it to me, so she would like when we build the sidewalk, to make sure there was an entrance for a driveway if it ever got subdivided.
Oh,
And, I was like, okay, great. This is the time to do it. So we just gotta make sure that that's indeed a divided lot. Or enough property to be able to build something there. So other than that, we're working. We've got Park Street cleaned up. We did 11 trees on Park Street. The one homeowner that had that tree we've been talking about in their front yard, he was billed $1,000 for his part of that. So it's kind of a shared cost in that tree. And that's been taken care of. I know that his side has been paid. So that's good. And we got the rest of, we didn't get the rest of all the problem trees on the street. We got maybe a quarter of the problem trees on the street, but, next year we'll get them back and we'll throw another $5,000 at it. So other than that, we should be looking ahead of our spring projects. We have, talked to a couple paving companies, and our targets this year, are River Road and the little section of Park Street that hasn't been, that is paved, to get repaved. So those two, again, get them close together. A couple roads that are bad. There's no infrastructure that needs to be repaired underneath them. And then, I know in talking with the water department, they were gonna head over to Hall Street and maybe do some galvanized services on Hall Street. So maybe we'll change some drainage and we can really push for that street next year to hopefully have something done with it. If we can get all the right of way issues straightened out for pipes under people's houses.
okay. So, Norm, do we need to get any help for the structures application for, the structures grant application? I know that deadline is coming up.
No, the structures our paperwork's already submitted. And
Okay.
that's for the pipe underneath Harlan Road in College. There's actually two pipes there. So it'll be a
Okay.
job pretty much like the Overley Road job, but that's all been turned in.
Good, thank you, excellent. One other question, do you know any update on the abandoned camper that's over here? I know
I
it's
don't.
railroad property, but
I've
I
actually-
didn't know.
Well, I've actually met with Larry Cole today and on a couple other parking issues for cars that, in the village that park on where they're not supposed to be at night. But the camper, they're having absolutely no luck with finding the owner. The guy, person, girl, whatever, human being, whatever their pronoun is, just abandoned and left town. They moved out of the residence that their own is now abandoned, or where they were residing. And, it's on railroad property. The railroad's not thrilled about it, but, we've had railroad stuff sit there for years in my knowledge, And there was a building that was supposed to be torn down when I first took this job, and it was 4 years before they bothered to do it.
So that's something that we need to wait for the railroad to take action?
Well, it's on railroad property. If the village decided to take action on that, I'm sure if you called the railroad and said, we'll deal with this camper for you, they would be more than happy. That would be my guess. But again, those things are horribly hard to get rid of.
Okay.
There's a lot of plastic. Nobody wants them. Can we, if you want me to deal with that, I can. It'll be an expense to the village. It's not like a car where somebody will tow it and they'll just keep it for the scrap value. Nobody wants these things, so.
Well, I don't want to incur a bunch of expense when we don't need to, but you and I can talk. I'll look up the contact that I have for the railroad, and I can ask you if that's the right person to contact. And then we can see if we can urge the railroad to share in that cost or bear that cost.
Yeah, we keep an eye on it almost every day. For the simple fact is we don't want anybody moving into it.
Right.
In this day and age, some people find a spot and, that's
Yeah.
where they are.
Isn't the vehicle registered?
No,
But there's
no, and
got
it was online on Facebook. I don't know where the thing is, where the advertisement was, but it was online, for free. That's how we found out where it came from. Please, here, you want a camper, take it. And then, the house got abandoned and the camper got moved. So they were probably renting the house, I would say. Larry's been, the PD's working on it. I can't tell you, they haven't had much luck.
Okay.
If they'd have stashed it on our property, we would have probably already ripped it out of there. But, it's kind of the railroad stuff.
I presume it doesn't run. I mean,
I have no idea.
Okay. Well, I know there have been people that have been concerned about safety issues that could present. Thank you for keeping an eye on that. But we'll, rather than let it sit there for 4 years, I'll get together with you and, we'll see who we can bug at the railroad.
Yeah, it's
The only other
unfortunate
thing-
for them as well,
Yeah,
maybe they'd say, listen, you want to partner with it, we'll both get it out of there. It's in our both
Right.
mutual interest.
Right.
I'm not going to be pretty about it. I'll smash it up and put it in a dumpster. You know what I mean? I'm not
That's
going to
okay.
be
What about putting it on a train and taking it to Walloomsac where there's a junkyard?
Well, they're not going to put it on a train, but that's probably not,
Easy.
what probably is reality. Okay. If we're going to get rid of it with a car without acquiring a humongous expense, is go up there and rip the plastic off of it, put it in our dump truck and bring it to the dump, and then haul the metal carcass away and get them to take it for scrap. But that's which is not terrible. Nobody's going to come looking for it. We apply for a lost title, salvage title, or abandonment title. You know what I mean? We get it in 30 days, and then it's ours. State. We can destroy it, do whatever we want with it.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that. Norm, the other thing that I brought along with me is that this time every year, there's 3 or 4 forms that we have to complete regarding, like one is that we're complying with the road and bridge standards. Another one is to submit to the transportation, agency of transportation, a list, the select board or the trustees list. I have that. But I brought that certificate of compliance here, affirming that we do meet the standards that the state has approved for road and bridges. And we did this last year, we'll do it again this year, so we'll sign that, and I'll make sure that if you want, you have a copy of all this too. But there's one other one, well, one form that Doug and I can do together on a budget. And then there was another one that I'll ask you about, had something to do with submitting either requests or affirmations of painting or some painting lines.
You're right, that's not applicable to us. We have, the only street that works on that is from, Bank Street, from the railroad crossing by the store to Hawks Avenue. That's the only little
Okay.
section
Okay.
that is applicable to us. You know, it's
Okay.
not, yeah. it's
All
not
right,
a
so
big
we don't
deal.
have to worry about that one, but after the meeting, I'll pass this around so trustees can sign this one.
Right, and then the other one's just the budget, and that's why I wanted to get a paving number for you. You know what I mean? I would use probably 80 grand. I think
Okay,
that's a reasonable window.
okay,
You know,
Doug and
get
I'll
those
get
two
together
streets cleaned up.
and I can show him what we've done in prior years, so he can take it away after this. Okay, anybody else have questions for Ray? Ray, I'm looking at Ray, whether there are any questions for Norm.
I have questions for Ray,
But not for Norm.
no.
So the thing with the mower that,
Yes,
that was, so about the middle of June, our mower lost a valve inside and basically the motor's ruined by the time you screw around trying to rebuild it. So they had to put a motor in it. Supply chain issues were horrible. So it finally just got finished. The vendor gave us a loaner mower for all summer, so we really can't complain. You know, we never missed a beat, so that's what that expense is, so. But that's, you know, it's just a poor designed thing, you know, that's our second, well, that'll be the third motor in that mower in 10 years, so.
when is that mower scheduled to be replaced? Do we know off the top of our heads? No, okay, we can look at that, because maybe if this is 3 times it's breaking, as soon as it comes up on its replacement schedule, we can figure out.
Well, unfortunately, you know, we might as well keep it at least another year with no problem, because
Yeah.
it's brand new, you know, but,
Sure,
oh,
okay. All right, we'll keep an eye on those replacement schedules.
Yep.
What else?
that's probably about it for me.
And then you all have a copy of the letter, and the diagram that was sent to the residents on Church Street. And so that will be an agenda on the March meeting. So everybody was given enough time to look at that and be aware of it. So thank you so
Right,
much.
and I was only contacted by one homeowner so far, and
All right,
when we went there and explained it, he was completely like, this is
Good.
great. You know,
Good.
so,
good.
all right,
And it'll be a great safety improvement for the children over there too. Okay,
Thanks,
thank
Norm.
you. Thank you.
all right,
You're
thank you.
welcome to stay or you can go.
No,
sure.
I'll go. I bet.
Yeah, I'm thinking so. All right, take care, Norm.
Bye-bye.
Doug, back to you.
Yep. So a couple items I said that I would go over, are audit and delinquent taxes. So, audit first, the way that the new firm works is, for the village side, I upload a bunch of items, to their online site and they begin to review them remotely, which has already begun. That happened probably early January. So the bill, like I said, is a progressive billing. Mary and I have a conference call with them tomorrow. We'll likely have more information. My guess is we'll start to get an idea of when they're gonna be here. They plan to be, on site, so meaning they'll use the depot probably for 2 days, they felt, because, they are also doing the water department audit simultaneously. So the village and the water, which are billed separately, but they're being done simultaneously. So that's the update for the audit, is it's underway and we're rolling along there. And just as a reminder, it is 2 years to catch up, and then we'll be doing an annual going forward. So we're on a 3-year cycle, we're now on a 1-year cycle, but since we were in the middle of a 3-year cycle, they're
Yeah.
doing 2 years. Yeah, so that's that. Delinquent taxes, we are now, again, I'll remind, these numbers are a little bit different, and I have a comparison because now the village pays the school in whole in December. So the total outstanding delinquent amount is, a hair over 54,000. That represents 24 parcels. Of the 24 parcels, 14 of them owe the tax amount. The other 10 have much smaller, where they just didn't pay either the penalty, the interest, or a portion of. So the true amount of ones that have a total amount due is 14. And there is only 2 parcels that owe any portion beyond this past year, and those amounts are relatively small. For comparison's sake, at the beginning of February last year, it was almost 67,000. So we are in better shape this year than we were in the prior year for collection of delinquent taxes.
Excellent.
Unless anybody has any other questions, that's pretty much all I have.
No, but thank you again for all your work on getting the copier up and going. It now scans as well.
Yes.
So if those of you who do print materials or may need to, I really, really urge you to you can contact Doug or even me, and I can help you get in touch with the folks that will set you up with your own mailbox there.
Yeah.
And it works really well. And so you'd be able to print off or scan to yourself any documents that you want, or scan it and send it to someone else. However, if you scan it and send it to someone else, they just get this email and you're not able to put any information on it. So you can scan it and send it to someone if they're aware that they're getting it. Otherwise, I would suggest, if you're scanning something like the document we just signed, when I send that to DOT, then I'll just send it to myself and forward it on with the message. But worked nicely, so thank you very much for that.
And to follow up on that, that is typically the best practice for a scanner like this, because it's not uncommon for that for it to work this way, where it just goes from the scanner to the email. So for you to have a record of what you sent, like Mary said, if you're sending the DOT or you're sending somewhere, if you email it to you scan it to yourself first and then forward it to that person, then you have the record of the actual send. If you just put, johnsmith@gmail.com, you don't really have a record of what you sent to johnsmith@gmail.com.
Okay.
So I-
No other questions for Doug? We can move right along. So, nothing, we have no fire department business that you're aware of? Anyone?
Lori, did
Yes,
you want to just mention about the water heater?
sure. So, I was contacted by Ed. There was a leak in the water heater. They contacted Bennington Cooling and Heating.
Uh-huh.
There were some pressure valves, I believe, that had been inserted that were the wrong size. So the tank was under a lot of pressure. Valves had to be changed, and everything appears to be in working order now. I have pictures of the leak, and if anyone would like to see that.
Is it anything that it's not to the degree that needs to go to an insurance claim then?
No, it
Okay.
does not. Apparently, the installation was not accurately done.
Okay.
That has now been corrected.
Okay.
They may or may not be still waiting for one part, but it is no longer leaking. And the
Good.
pressure is down, and Ed did the correct thing and got it taken care of. And before it was a very big problem, which apparently it would have been shortly, but all is in order.
Oh, good.
So the work was done by the people who installed it in the first place, correct?
I like the mistaken work.
What?
Were you able to hear that, Lori?
No, that's not correct, Ray. And they're still investigating who was the initial installer of those parts. So, but I will
Well, it was
absolutely,
Bennington- It was Bennington Heating and Refrigeration.
Well,
Okay.
but it might have been, but there was also the other people that were working on it at one point. At one point, we had two people.
One
That's
was the
correct.
electrician.
Yeah,
We had a separate electrician to do all the hookups, but I think, I remember what Ray is
Yeah,
saying,
I
that
couldn't
Bennington
tell you.
Heating and Cooling did the whole installation.
but I thought they came in because other people, somebody else, I don't know.
There
Yeah,
was
Mary,
also
I
a
think you're
contractor.
correct, Mary, but I can get you the information and I'll send you all out an email if
Yeah,
that,
why don't you just do that? As long as it's fixed, that's the most important.
There was a separate contractor for the old oil burner furnace
Yeah.
too. That might be what you're thinking, who you're thinking.
Yeah.
Oh,
that-
okay.
The oil burner was done by the
Well.
oil supplier.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking.
Right. And, that, the, power Bennington Cooling and Heating did have something to do with the oil burner because they, replaced
Feed pipes.
no, there was a problem with the, part that is on the outside of the boiler that connects directly, it's a thermostat that corrects directly to the heating chamber. They corrected that.
Okay.
And then the rest of the work on the oil boiler 2 years ago was done by the oil supplier.
Okay.
And they continued because they cleaned it this year, I believe.
Okay.
Right.
And I don't believe then, nothing else, Lori, from the fire department?
no, not at this time. Any questions
Okay.
that were had, we were able to take care of. There was a little bit of paperwork to take care of and that sort of thing, so.
Okay. Oh, however, I should mention that, congratulations to everybody who took part in Winterfest and sponsored Winterfest. Tara, you can do an update on that if you want, but my understanding is a very nice donation was raised for the fire department a second year in a row. So thank you and to everyone who
Close to
was able to
3,000.
do that.
Good. It's great.
Yeah.
Can I just ask one more quick question on, excuse me, the water heater at the firehouse? Are we gonna be charged for the work that had to be done? Or is that still, we don't know yet?
Well, I don't think we should be charged if it was improperly installed and you went to Bennington Heating and Refrigerating.
Okay, I think we can, I don't want to speculate on what we don't know yet. So
Yes, so we're
it's a
still
good
looking
thing.
into that.
It's a good thing to look at, and I'm sure Lori will keep. us
I will
apprised.
get more information and send you all an email, like I
Yeah.
said.
Thank you, Lori.
Okay. Water department, I don't believe I've asked Steve Goodrich if there was any business that he
I
would
think
like
they're
to
still
know, and I don't,
investigating
have not
who's-
gotten a response, so I'll say no. DRB, I believe you had no meeting this month, but don't you have a meeting that you need to announce, or not really? No,
We'll be having a meeting in March.
a March meeting, but none this month, none this
The
month.
meeting in March will be later this month.
Okay.
25th.
And that'll be posted, so anybody so interested can go and watch for that. Okay, we are quite a bit ahead of time, which is good. A significant part of, or significant issue with today's meeting is, the planning commission is going to be presenting, the letter and asking for this body to approve both the village plan and the new land use and development regulation documents. The planning commission has been hard at work for 2 years, at least, working on this. initially the initial progress that was done came to a halt because of a number of legislative changes that Kim and others have advised this body about. Just so that you all and the public knows, I do sit on that commission, but I do not vote. I'm not a voting member of that commission. I would vote on this board, but not on that board. So we have 3 members of the planning commission, and I would ask if you can come a little bit forward when you're ready to talk. 4.
Everyone.
We're 100% of the audience.
We it's my apologies, we have everybody here. So, and all of these folks will say something about the process. We've elected to start with introducing the village plan, because that's the smaller of the 2 documents, and was nicely drafted probably 8 years ago or so. Steve Lennox will tell us a bit about the major changes come on up, and actually anyone that wants to can come forward. It's a little bit easier for Zoom, but do one at a time. So Steve Lennox will walk through some of the major updates in the village plan.
And as Mary said, the document that we started with wasn't actually in very good shape. So the lion's share of it was just really a little bit of wordsmithing, a little bit of making things a little more consistent with terminologies and so forth, with a few exceptions we'll get to. And we reserved more of the effort of the discussion today to handle the presentation of the land use and development regulations, because that's a bigger nut that we had to tackle. As Mary said, we've dealt with this in 2 documents over the last 2 years. Land use got really the head start because we knew we need a lot more work there, but over the last year on the village plan. Like I said, most of the work we did was, it will look very familiar in terms of how it's organized and how it reads, and it was a great document to read. We took chapter 8 and did a little bit of massaging to it. There were a lot of important pieces to that chapter that were not given subchapter numbers. And so
Transportation, correct?
Yes, I'm sorry, transportation. So we didn't change the content as much as we made it a lot easier to read and refer to. And those areas included parking and access, traffic calming, sidewalks, trails and pathways, road use, environmental impact. So we now, when you go through, it's easier to find all the different bits to that area. And again, with nothing that comes to mind that is substantial content change there, again, mostly wordsmith. The bigger piece, and I'm going to yield this to Dan, was the development of a new chapter on climate change. We'll let Dan talk about that. I have a little bit more after that to talk about some things that are dealing with some other parts of the plan. But let's have Dan talk about the
And for the audience, this is Dan Delory. Dan has graciously agreed to join the commission this past year, and
Yes.
has made some major contributions towards it. So
Yeah, I advocated for a new chapter on climate change, and the rest of the commission agreed with that. And the chapter basically addresses each side of the climate change coin. One side being mitigation and what the town and its citizens can do with respect to reducing emissions. And the other part of it being adaptation, which is what can the town and its citizens do in terms of making, I'm sorry, I keep saying town, that I was born in New York. It's more of a town than Oakland. Sorry. What the village can do with respect to making the town, the village.
we know what you're talking
Yeah, I know. I still feel bad. Making the village more resilient to the effects of climate change. So in terms of the first part, the mitigation part, that chapter talks about the ways that the village can possibly reduce its own emissions from its own properties and operations, buildings included, but also how the village can maybe assist its citizens in learning more about climate change and learning more about what they can do about it, and maybe assisting them in what they can do about it. Back to that other side of the coin being adaptation and mitigation, that perhaps ends up more in the village's lap, because we are in a situation here of potential impact from climate change. I mean, I'm happy to address any questions about climate change. I'm very familiar with it. I can talk about the data. I can talk about the almost certainty that we're going to have to deal with it. But again, this chapter is mainly starting to plant the flag of climate change within the village plan as to something that the village and its citizens have to begin to consider. So happy to answer any questions with respect to that.
Well, I would encourage anyone listening to read the plan, if only to, if you're interested, look at that specific chapter. There are hard copies in the library, and it is also referenced on the homepage of the village website. The documents on the website, the titles were a little misleading for a while, but that's been corrected. But if anyone clicked on either of the link, they would have seen that. And we have had some people already read those documents. So I would encourage people to do that and get themselves familiar.
Yeah, and I'm happy to have people,
Addition. It was a
I'm happy
great
to have
addition.
people contact me
Yeah.
directly to talk about
Yeah.
climate change or perhaps answer the questions. I'm happy to do that.
And people can always watch the website or the postings for planning commission meetings. They're always open to the public. And people can always come and ask questions or do whatever. So thank you so much. That was a great
Thank you.
improvement to that plan.
Moving along, the last chapter of the village plan is, as it always has been, is consistency with state planning goals. This has been a back and forth, usual development with DCRC, and because of the changes that have been required for the village code, planning, what do we call it again? Land use, thank you, sorry. Because of the impacts there, we had to address in the village plan that those are real changes to the potential changes to the character of the village, and we needed to address that. In no particular order of importance, things that are really important changes since the last issue. It's now pretty much a normal thing. We have open meetings, and those are advertised, and we have Zoom access and so forth. Planning Commission has been meeting every month, 11 times a year. We take December off, but otherwise it's been consistent, and we've not missed a meeting for any reason. We stay, and that I'll get to that in a bit, but we will be continuing just because these documents are done. It's like that was just 2 items on the agenda. We have a whole long agenda, which I'll get to in a second. We've been working a little bit with some of the adjacent communities, especially with emergency management questions. Are there opportunities for partnerships that would be helpful? Because if there's an emergency, we may be hit, but Shaftesbury isn't, or vice versa. And do we have some symbiotic relationships that we want to advance? Vermont Act 47 really changes the way the village has always been conceived of. It's a concentrated area that gradually gets to be less density of people. We now have the potential of that intermittently happening in various pockets of the village, not the village center, but of the entirety of the village. So those are things that we've had to try to address within the village plan. Moving forward, as I just said, we see it as like, well, we're gonna be meeting next week and next month again and again and again. Things we're gonna be looking at, Kim in particular, spent a lot of time, with, dealing with Lake Parent Dam on railroad and, engineering studies, and that also is directly related then to emergency and, management and flood, containment issues. Mary mentioned, I think, that we, at one point looked at the reality that we're in the floodplain. The fire station is in the floodplain. So if we have advance notice of a problem, we can move the vehicles out. If we don't, our emergency vehicles are right in the harm's way. So we did look at some feasibility of relocating it, and Kim particularly did a quick study plan. So we kind of size up an opportunity to possibly relocate if we could. Traffic calming, something we'll be looking at in the coming year, and as soon as next week, I believe, or later this week. I can't make that call. Again, emergency management and coordination is a big one on our agenda to look at. One of the challenges always is when someone like a fire chief is the head of that, they are not in the best position to then be the coordinator because their focus is on the emergency, which they're professionally trained to deal with. So is there a alternate person who then takes on more of that kind of coordination, which also has to be probably much more technology based, because it's really reaching out through internet and through other communications. Housing development, because of the changes of legislation in Act 47, working with realtors and just trying to stay in touch with them so we both have a conversation with what might be going on. The quality of the pedestrian experience, what it means to be in this square, and what does it mean to walk through this village and go into the different shops. It's really, it is the heart of the village, and for it to feel like a nice pedestrian experience is something we're going to try to address. So we don't have any answers yet. It's just what we're going to be looking at. And preservation and enhancement of the character of the village, in any aspect of whatever comes up. So sometimes it might be in reaction to something that's happening. In other cases, it might be an idea gets floated and we come back to you to say, hey, we got this great idea. That's what we're doing. That's kind of it. And I think Kim will have exhaustively more information to share.
But did any trustee have a question? Has anybody had any chance to peruse any of the?
I read the whole
You
thing
did?
today, and it was, I was saying to Kim before, I think you guys did a superb job. And a lot of the things like the climate change part, but also incorporating that Bill Scully study of the firehouse dam and like Parent Dam for electrical generating possibilities. That puts it on, gets it in there in a legal document that's a village. So now it's part of our history. So I think it's very cool, the whole thing.
I had looked at the education part in the previous plan, and I noted that that it mentioned Southern Vermont College, so I was glad to see that was been excised. And oh yes, in the recreation side of it, part of it, you refer to Lake Huron as being supported by tax dollars from Bennington and Shasberry, but you don't mention that this village also supports it. We put money into it every year too.
I think we thought that was implied maybe in the statement, but we'll go back and make that.
I thought it should be more direct.
Okay,
because
no,
it directly
that's-
mentions it.
And you know what, that reminds me, I don't know that Bennington does. Bennington,
It's worth noting that Bennington decided not to support Lake Perrin this year.
Wow. Since half the visitors come from Bennington, other than the village, pretty amazing.
But thank you for noting that we can look at.
Yeah.
Let's see, I don't have anything else to add right now. I just want to make sure that people have a chance to ask questions while planning commission is here, but if no one has any questions for Steve, we can move on to Kim's presentation for the land use and development reg.
I did have one point. I read through all this part about, state meeting consistency with state planning. And I thought everything that was in red was your work for, updating it, and it seemed really great. So I appreciate that.
How many years is it before you guys have to do this again? Yeah.
Taking the George Washington Bridge.
Is it every 8 years?
I don't know.
It's either 7 or 8.
7 or 8.
I think it's 7.
Who's counting, right?
Yeah. For all we know, they'll change it to 5, so.
Well, hopefully doing all this work will make it easier in the future.
Well, I think Kim will refer to this, but the current group does not intend to just put this on the shelf, go like this and be done with it. And we're hoping by doing this type of outreach now, that others will be interested and come forward with suggestions and comments. And as Chris always says, as we go through this and have some real life examples to test, we'll know what works and what doesn't, and we can start making notes for the next time.
Well, the effort over the last
Sorry.
2 years has been, the work of many hands. Our current, commission's pretty much here, other than Nicole and
Marnie.
Marnie. Marnie was going to come as well. But there were past members as well that contributed along the way. The initiation of the change to the land use and development regulations grew out of an examination of the current zoning bylaws. And the current zoning bylaws are very good to get through. I thought their organization was, because it had been changed year after year with minor accretions, it really ended up as a mishmash. So we began by rewriting the organization of the document with the intent of making it more approachable and more understandable. And in so doing, we wrote an introduction. That introduction says, what is zoning? Who wrote this? Why are we doing this? Under what authority? And then gives an example of a permitting process, a very simple one. So everything is consistently says, start with the zoning administrator and find out what's going on. They can interpret the document and save you a lot of time and lead you through the process. Another aspect of the document, the previous document, was deficient, was very little information related to subdivisions and plan unit developments. And these can have profound effects on a small village. If a major developer comes in and wants to build 50 homes or whatever, we would certainly want the process to exist where we could make sure that it was complementary to the desires of the village. So those aspects were added. Sections 1 and 2, I'll just lead you through. You can look at the table of contents if you have it with you, and you'll see where I'm going. Sections 1 and 2 are sort of the legal framework on which the document is based. Everything flows from the power of the state. That's why these are bylaws. They start with laws and we write their local application, which is a bylaw. Our powers are limited, and that is addressed in these chapters. Section 3 is definitions, and there's a lot of information in there about how these apply, how these various terms apply, because this is a quasi-legal document, and defining things closely is important to implementing the laws. Section 4 says how the document is to be administered, how the statute, the bylaws are to be administered and enforced. The two primary parties doing that are the ZA and the DRB. And the ZA is the gatekeeper to the permitting process and decides issues that are clearly delineated to be within their purview. Those are called administrative decisions. If it's not clearly delineated, then it moves over, gets referred to the DRB, and the DRB administers a set of types of reviews: site plan reviews, conditional use reviews, change of use, variance and waivers, subdivisions, plan unit developments, and appeals of the actions of the ZA. So all the processes are laid out in section 4. I want to focus a moment on the processes of subdivisions, which is the dividing of a single lot into 3 or more lots, and plan unit developments, which is the construction of buildings on those divided lots. We are wanting to control that aspect. And so we have required essentially 4 different reviews: a pre-application meeting where the DRB identifies exactly whether or not this is a major or minor development and what are the requirements of a complete application. In case of a major developer coming in and wanting to build 50 homes, that's a lot that we would want of them. And so we would lay that out in the pre-application meeting. Second meeting would be a master plan where they identify all their planning, how they're going to divide up the lots and how big the buildings are and where they're going to put underground utilities, the roads that they're going to implement, what trails they're going to attach to ours or sidewalks attached to ours. All of that will be in the master plan. Then we may require a preliminary plan, and then finally a final review. So the intention is to not frustrate a major development, but have control over how it proceeds. On the other hand, if it's simple and straightforward and in line with the desires of the village plan, then those reviews can all be foreshortened. So it can be, they still have pre-application to determine maybe it's a minor application, and then you can go forward to a master plan and preliminary plan is one meeting, and then a final review. As it happens, we define a new type of plan unit development, and I'll get to that because that's a little bit later on in this chapter. I mean, in this presentation. Section 4 then, defining all that, how it's administered and enforced is then followed by general regulations, and these are largely regardless of which district you're in. So they're divided in two parts, divided into site-related regulations and then dwelling-related regulations. So this is where you learn what you can and cannot do for parking and swimming pools and ponds and mobile and manufactured homes and exterior lighting and tiny homes and accessory dwelling units. And that is the basis of Section 5. There's some potentially controversial issues in there. We have added a section, small section on recreational vehicle tracks. And these are combustion engine driven vehicles operated for pleasure. And if they're to use a track to go around and around, we want to control that use such that you're at least 100 feet from your neighbor's road. And there are some other regulations, but in general, that's what we're trying to do there. And that's brand new to the regulations. Another potentially controversial issue would be shipping containers. Unless they're there for a permitted construction, and that would be permitted. Their time on the property is limited to 6 months, so that people don't just set shipping containers on their property and leave them there forever as an accessory shed or something like that. And lastly, the wireless telecommunications facilities section is controversial, definitely. We say that the FCC is in violation of the court order in that after 3.5 years, they have failed to test their technology that they're promulgating for safety. The court has required that and they've done nothing. We are not permitted to regulate wireless communication facilities. But we are asserting that we are in control of zoning and property taxes. So if land is so valuable that it is useful for a cell tower, then we are making explicit that we're going to reassess property taxes based on that. We will be challenged likely if somebody wants to build another cell tower in our village by these regulations because they are extensive, and the Planning Commission was ready for the fight. So we'll leave it at that. You can look at that section. Section 6 takes a different tactic on which uses are permitted and where. The previous zoning document laid out district by district all the regulations. What we do is put all of this in tabular form and identify the various districts and many more uses than were covered previously. So it's, I don't know, something like 100 different types of uses, everything from, I don't know, a museum or a garage or a lodging or whatever it might be. We try to cover that and identify whether or not it gets a conditional use review or a site plan review, or it's just outright permitted or it's outright rejected for that particular district. And we thought in a tabular form, we can cover a lot more uses. And then we have extensive footnotes to those charts. So I think we have expanded our ability to be explicit with people coming before the DRB or the ZA as to what is or is not permitted. Section 7 takes on the defining factors for the site plan and conditional use reviews. So again, we're trying to make it explicit before you come before the board or you're planning a project. Here are the things we're going to review. It's not excessively specific, gives us some latitude towards, common sense and approaching various different requirements. But we wanted to lay it out such that the people applying know what our concerns are and what our focus will be. Section 8 is the historic district overlay, which means simply that it covers more than one district, and it identifies design criteria within the historic district such that we maintain the character of the village. And that is largely unchanged from our previous zoning bylaw. Section 9, again, largely unchanged. It is the flood hazard district overlay and identifies the requirements that the state had. That's pretty much a regurgitation of the state requirements. Section 10, shoreland area, just identifies how we're trying to preserve the border around the lake. That's pretty much the focus of that, and that is largely unchanged from the previous bylaw. Section 11 is new, and it is in response to Act 47, where you've heard me rail against. The state changed the criteria for density of dwelling units, and the density cannot be reduced in an area where there is water and sewer infrastructure and homes are permitted. So it sets that criteria at 5 dwelling units per acre. And we map out where the municipal infrastructure is, so we can administer that area of increased density. And so there's a map in there which identifies the zone that is covered by water and sewer. Section 12 begins the subdivision and plan unit development criteria and has things about lot shape and road requirements and open space requirements and connections to sidewalks and trails, utility distribution, fire hydrants, all that sort of thing that a developer would have to put in for a major development. And so, again, we're controlling that possibility should it occur that a major developer would come in, and we have the criteria to make sure that the roads are appropriate and the fire hydrants are added and the lot sizes are not strange. And then we add a type of plan unit development called cottage court developments, which we believe maintains the character of the village. And so in enticing developers to utilize this type of plan unit development, shortening the review time. And potentially the trustees could also choose to incentivize this type of development with property tax incentives. That's up to you. That's not in the requirement, but it's a possibility. It could allow a developer to build in a way that we think supports the character of the village. And I can answer questions about that, but there are diagrams in there as to what a cottage court development would be. Section 13 is the new map. The new map makes changes to a handful of parcels and moving their district to better align the map with our understanding of the state's requirements for density in the center of the village. We've just sent out letters to all the affected parties. How many letters? 16 different parcels were arranged, and they all got a letter identifying that and inviting them to the next planning commission meeting so that we can explain to them what the implications are. In most cases, obviously, if they don't have a project in mind, it has no impact on them. But we still wanted to inform them that what the changes might mean. And then lastly, we have an appendix at the end which correlates the old sections of the document to the new sections so that people can follow exactly why we made the changes. You can see the distribution of stuff in the old one document was all over the map. And now we feel it's much more logically organized. Accompanying the documents will be a letter from the trustees to the state saying, please review these documents. And there's some other requirements, GIS information that BCRC needs to do for us. But you got a version of that letter addressed to you in this case, but that was with minor tweaks would be used to identify the application to the state. We also specifically lay out changes in Act 47 and 181 that we think the state would be looking for in our new document. And so we have a spreadsheet identifying, okay, here's the section of the statute, and here's where we cover it within our application. So hopefully that will ease the review process. And I would just reiterate that we are not done. We are moving forward with our recommendations based on the village plan. We are moving forward with trying to get the school to be a shelter. We're moving forward. If you have any questions for the planning commission, I think you've got an excellent representation of folks who can answer them.
Kim, this is amazing to me. I mean, what you've put forth in the last 2 years is just ridiculously good. And I'm grateful for all your work. You've put together what we've been trying to do for the last 30 years, just kind of, here and there, and you've brought it all together, and I'm really impressed. I did want to speak to the letter or what came out today where you showed the changes you made to zoning density.
Right.
Pull that up. I think it, for the most part, is all good, but I noticed a change on Park Street on the Pembroke parcel
Yes,
from conservation to, was it R?
PR20.
the R20.
Yeah. Uh, what, what precipitated that change?
That's a good question. We looked at that property, from the rest of the conservation area. Went up to the Mile Round Woods, looked down, walked around that area, and it's really not visible from any of the other the conservation area that's on that hillside. It is a business, essentially a business occupancy right now. And it really doesn't have any, it's not in its natural state. And so it's within walking distance of the village center. And this is a type of property that would permit development if the owner chose to, that would support the state's aims of having housing development within the confines or the close confines of the village center. It's, in a way, it's similar to the property that's on 67, where again, that property or that particular parcel has direct connection to 67 and could very well have connections to the sidewalks into the village. And so we felt that that was also in keeping with organizing the village development to be appropriate for housing. And likewise, we changed the property at the end of Sage Street from industrial, because it's no longer industrial, to, I think it's PR20 again.
Yep.
For that same reason, we're trying to show the state that we are in keeping with their dictate to make possible, not define that they must or anything like that, not convince them that they should, but make it possible for us to show progress towards facilitating more housing in the village center.
So, and I think that's great. But the reason why that parcel is in the conservation district, in my understanding, and from previous iterations of this over the last 20 years, is that there's actually covenants on that property
That may be.
that would not allow
Development.
that development. And so I mean, I would think then it needs to fall under some other designation, just, and may stay as conservation or stay as restricted in some way.
Well, the covenants we can't address, nor have we examined the covenants of any properties.
Right.
Our goal was to define what they call transects of sort of radial areas around the village center with decreasing density, but certainly gathering around the village center all the properties that have that potential. Now, if the covenants, I don't know what the covenants say.
So I think they're very similar. They're similar to because that property was purchased from the McCullough family, that I think that parcel should remain in the same conservation as you have on the other side of the street.
if the covenants resemble what my covenants on my property are, then they have some wiggle room, but development of the property is limited. Right.
So would it matter what the VR is? Because wouldn't that covenant take precedence over anything that you would identify?
Yes, I think so. Since they
It
take
would,
precedence.
it would. Except that I'm concerned that there maybe, as time goes on, someone might be misled into believing that a given parcel is developable in a way that it's not in a VR20. And that could lead to confusion, I would think. And if there's no one there to defend that, I'd be concerned about how that plays out, and in the sense that someone gets led down a path and subdivides and then finds out that, and I get your point. That's not your purview. I want to make sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Unless you're able to represent exactly what the covenant says, then I think we're speculating here. And frankly, I don't know that it makes any difference whether it's conservation or VR20. If the covenant applies, any title search will reveal that and frustrate any efforts to develop it. So this, think of it this way, that the state is on our case. We have a target of 50 new developments, dwelling units in 5.5 years. That's our target. If we can show progress towards facilitating that, at least in their mind, that's a good thing. Whether the land is ever developed or not is sort of immaterial to that effort.
So I have a question, and I don't know if we can answer this. If somebody was in, theoretically speaking, a VR district, 10, 20, whoever, whatever number it is, and they say, I want to put my land in a preservation trust or whatever, isn't there a way to set your land aside? And
Sure.
not thinking of the words, you could do that, a person could do that.
Yes.
And so that then would eliminate the possibility of development forever, or only while the owner is about?
Forever.
Forever.
Forever if it's defined that way.
Okay.
And there is a property, for instance, on Mechanic, which is that it's an open field and it's preserved.
Okay.
That doesn't change its district assignment for us.
Point well taken. I think you're right about that. Kim, is that you can zone it one way, then it takes another level of
Individuals can choose what they wish to do with their own property.
Yeah.
As long as we maintain that individuals can choose.
Right. And the differentiation between VR 10 and 20 and 40 is largely dependent now on whether it's served with both water and sewer.
Right.
And the differentiation really only applies to non-dwelling unit developments. If it's not a house, VR10, VR20 applies, even though it's a village residential, it applies. So that's all that we're really controlling in those various districts, if it's served by water and sewer.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mhm.
Another hypothetical, if there is a business or a use of a property that is in an area that the table now says that's not permitted, are they automatically grandfathered?
You want me to give an example?
Yeah.
So the example would be, I was just looking at the chart and Conservation District says that bed and breakfasts are not permitted. But my family ran one for 10 years, 12 years. So is that grandfathered in, were we to try and do that again?
Is it currently a business?
It's a business, but it's not a bed and breakfast.
I would say, no, it's not.
I think there's a 1 year grace period where,
I mean, I don't see us going back to that ever, but
But what if there was somebody else in that position that, you know, says, well, I just never advertised, but I've been doing this
If the use is ongoing.
ongoing?
then-
Okay,
Then that's.
that makes sense, if it's ongoing.
Yeah.
But just because somebody says, well, my grandfather did it,
Right.
doesn't mean, okay.
I just noticed it because I was like, oh, well, we were a bed and breakfast, but now we can't be ever again. Don't plan to.
But I do think that one of the nice things about having this tabular format of things is that previously the bylaw said, if you don't see it, that means it's not permitted. And so this really takes some of that hunting and pecking, is it permitted or is it not, away from that much more vague statement that says, if you don't see it, it's not there. So I think that's very helpful for people contemplating what to do with their property.
Well, the other thing is that we lay out, if there is a review, condition on their site.
Yes.
We tell them exactly what we're gonna get reviewed. So there are no surprises. Or less than a surprise.
Kim, can you, illustrate in what ways these new bylaws might, inhibit the Airbnb? Did you touch that at all? I didn't.
There is a sentence right at the bottom of those charts that I just saw because you had it highlighted. No more than 12.
We believe that B&Bs should be regulated by ordinance and not by-
Airbnbs.
Airbnb
Yeah.
should be regulated by ordinance and not by the bylaws.
Okay.
And so if there is a reference, it's a.
They are permitted in
the R120.
in the 120, or I think on the college property.
Yes, I think
Yeah,
that's probably
Yeah.
too.
Well, that's PUD, right? You mean on the,
That highlighted text.
I was just hoping that these somehow we would get to a point where we could, restrict to some degree,
They are restricted, I think,
Oh, yes,
some.
this is an older version.
Yeah, some. There was some discussion in the meetings that we had, and we had extensive discussion on this matter, that there is a place for these very short-term VRBOs or Airbnbs or whatever. There is a purpose for some of them, but they can't be on every street corner and next to everybody's property. So they are allowed.
Exclusively be a residence.
They are allowed. There are conditions around them. The owner of whoever is running that has to at least be a resident or own property in the village. It can't be, somebody from who knows where, purchasing properties and then just doing short-term rentals. And then we did leave it at a certain number, did we not, Kim? A percentage
We
of.
did all this, you're absolutely
Yeah.
right, but then we voted that we would take it out of the.
Right.
Put it into ordinances.
And put it into an ordinance. So there's
Okay.
nothing related.
I
to
forgot that.
So the latest version does not have
Okay.
any reference because we knew one of the things we were gonna tackle next was short-term rental ordinance.
Yes.
And we have an example of a short-term rental ordinance from a small village.
And
north.
there has been a lot of this discussion in the news in virtually every municipality you want to visit. And you're correct. That's why we did elect to follow, I think, the lead of a number of other municipalities that have found it much more beneficial to address it that way. Thank you. We had talked about it so many times.
Yeah,
I
we
couldn't
talked about
remember.
it extensively, and there are older versions of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
The old ideas.
But yes, Matthew, it is planned to be controlled in a different format.
Gotcha.
Then I think we were hoping that the trustees could tonight make a motion and so vote to approve these two documents so that they can go further in the review process. You do not have to, but the Act 147 has also, or 47, which one ever was, 147.
47 and 181.
181. Act 47 did change the way rural municipalities approve the zoning bylaw. And it is not, unless this body so chooses, it is not by a public vote. This body ultimately has the decision of whether to approve or not. And so we are asking if, now that you've heard so much about both the plan and the land use ordinance, that it would be appropriate to go ahead and vote for approval of these documents so that we can move ahead in the review process, which is going to the BCRC, going to the state, et cetera.
Is there an appeal process for those who would have property owners who are adversely affected by some of these changes? I mean,
That has been a discussion. There is no review process that, unless the trustees choose to have a review process. So for instance, if you want to wait until our meeting with the prospective property owners whose district has changed, and see whether there are any objections, you can certainly do that too.
well, my concern is that maybe someone who used to be someone whose development potential has actually been decreased. And I feel like that may have occurred out of Madison, right?
Yes, that is correct. It has occurred out in Madison.
Went from VR 40 to VR 160 or something like that, or whatever.
Yeah, that's correct.
And so
And that's why in the chart that I included with that letter, included the square footage of those properties. You know, somewhere in the millions, so that they could see what the impacts would be. If you're a small landowner on Madison, you don't have the land to develop unless you do an ADU, and that you simply don't have the land, so you can't have a second primary development. And that is in the case for a handful of those. And then if you look down the list, all the landowners who have substantial property are well above the 120,000 square feet. So it's it's still not affecting people, I don't think. But we will potentially get pushback, and we'll explain the situation, but having that area on that chart, I think is valuable for making that explanation.
Is there any negative to waiting until after that meeting to make this motion?
No.
Okay,
It's, I mean, we've had these documents out for a number of months, so we thought if people felt that they had enough time to look at them and make a decision, we could, but one more month is not gonna stall anything.
well, those letters went out to the,
This weekend.
okay, so yeah, so that's a new thing. So I would say wait until next month and then we can make that motion next month without having to represent so that we can be concise.
Yes.
That's fine.
Marion, it might
And
look
we would
bad.
invite any of you to come to that meeting as well, so you can hear for yourself, should anybody come either in person or on Zoom. It
Because
might be useful,
if we don't make the decision,
yeah.
you know, you guys will decide whether or
Yeah.
not you want to approve the document as it is.
Yeah.
Or change it. So.
But it would be useful, it would be helpful, I think, for those of us who ultimately do vote on this, to hear what somebody might have to say for ourselves.
That's what I'm saying. Everybody comes in the last minute. You get nothing, nothing, and then all of a sudden there's 20 people showing up and saying, we don't like this.
Negative comments.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I say we, put this on a table until
Yeah.
next month.
I think that's right.
And I do think it's an incredible document. And I just want to hear, what individuals might have some concern. And I'm surprised that these people, those who have a change in the land use potential, did they get certified letters to this?
Just regular mail, just regular mail.
That's following the standard. There
was no standard.
There is no standard to alert them, other than the meetings are in public.
And the documents have been posted.
So I think we went above board by sending them individual letters.
Well, that's what we wanted the commission really wanted to make certain that nobody was gonna feel blindsided.
Yeah, well, somebody's gonna complain.
Anyway.
Likely.
It may be, but we unanimously felt that even though there were changes, they were
Right.
well thought through changes and was not limiting or taking away anyone's right to their property.
The other thing is, and this was just how we ran the planning commission, is that we never have mentioned who owns
No.
Right.
a
Yeah.
parcel.
Right.
It's just never come up. We've never. I mean, there's certainly knowledge within the commission as to who owns what, but it never came.
Until this table was made up, I had no idea who was where.
No, that clearly wasn't, it was just looking at the whole big picture and trying to satisfy the state on density issues
Yeah.
and I think that's great. I'm surprised that there isn't actually a statutorial requirement for notification,
Make
to,
a bright one.
Well, we couldn't find,
Right to your legislator.
I mean, I'm not saying there is one. I'm just saying that it would be shocking to me. I mean, not with any of these particular scenarios, but it seems like you could make some sort of really major change to their property, which would affect their property values. And I mean, theoretically, and never really get notified, but by US mail. I mean, I deal with stuff like this, and I typically, I think there's certified letters and this kind of thing that just notify that, hey, this is, but if that's not in the statute, then I'm okay with it.
would you prefer that be done?
I don't know enough about it, frankly, to know if I prefer that or not. I know that I was affected, I'd prefer that, but again, I'm just concerned more about going through the process and then doing it correctly such that we don't get pushed back 6 steps to do it again. That's all I'm concerned about, but
So at this point, are you sanguine with waiting until they have their meeting and then readdressing this next week, or next month?
if that is agreeing to you, Tara, with waiting, yes, then that's my second to your motion.
Okay,
Just
it's
waiting.
it's not a motion, it's just tabling the decision until later.
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
Not that we're against any of this, because I'm all about it. I just,
Yeah.
if it doesn't really affect your agenda or your timeline, then let's wait a month.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay,
Are there any other comments from the trustees?
thank you. All of you, thank you.
Fantastic job.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing amount of work.
Yeah,
All
man,
right, we will.
like going back to school.
Well, we're just a tiny, tiny bit beyond our agenda, but well worth the thorough discussion of the topic. Really important topic. The next thing we need to mention is that another state law changed, and that is with ethics. And so every municipality needed to do 2 things by January 31st, one of which was to appoint an ethics liaison. The other was to have on their website certain documents posted, which we have those documents posted, the state minimum requirements for ethics and who falls under the umbrella of that. And we did because we didn't have a special meeting for it, but via email, the trustees had made a motion and a second to appoint Lori Elwell as the ethics liaison, of which Lori accepted, and that was so voted. So Lori Elwell is now the official ethics liaison for the village of North Bennington. And her duties are to, at some point, make sure that all of us who fall under that umbrella are appropriately trained. That's done once every 3 years. And that if any person had a ethics complaint and it went to this, and they would contact the state. There is a whole procedure for that. The state would then contact Lori about any follow-up or any investigation that needed to be done. So thank you, Lori, for accepting that appointment.
Not a better person for it. That's
There
great.
you go.
Yeah.
There
Thanks,
you go.
That's for sure.
And actually it fits because in the policy that the village had adopted back in 2019 that is still in effect, anyone who had a concern, an ethics concern, would have gone to Lori anyway. Under new business, I sent out to everyone the proposal from Centerline Architects to do project design and management for our MERP, the Municipal Energy Resilience Program grant that we have, which is to replace the fossil fuel systems or amend the fossil fuel systems in our 3 municipal buildings, fire station, this depot, and the garage. We had previously had Bill Christian under the mini grant. He was our local advisor and coordinator. Bill has joined us today for this. Bill had taken a look at the Centerline's proposal, and I think seemed when he and Ray and I had chatted about that the other day. Bill, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I believe you felt that seemed like a reasonable document.
Yeah, I took it home and looked it over. I'm concerned about the cost of overhead. Basically, we're at.
Bill, can you just come up so that Lori can hear you for her
Oh,
notes?
thank you.
Sorry, I just know that she can't hear you from back there.
Oh, okay. So as part of what I'd be doing for the village, I'd like to try to stay on budget. Like we are basically at our overhead just with the bare minimum, but without follow-up. Like part one takes us right to the edge of, and I don't think that our budget is really generous for the rest of the work that we're doing. So I'm just concerned about making sure we can get the job done and do a good job. So I'd be happy to work with Centerline.
Yeah.
To make sure that they don't do anything unnecessary. I mean, part of my concern is that these are not very difficult jobs. You know, it's very residential heating basically, and the weather sealing and insulating. I wouldn't want to fritter away a big chunk of that on design when we just do it. And then hopefully I can hold their nose to the grindstone on that.
Okay.
So otherwise, yeah.
That's exactly what you would be doing in that capacity as our advisor and person. But I guess what we need to do to move forward is either accept this proposal that we've been given or modify this proposal. But time is running short on getting this done. So if you're advising that we should not sign this document, I would take that under advisement. But if you're saying that, yes, we should go ahead and accept this, but on the condition that you are the close, worker for it. I mean, you're closely watching and attending all of these review meetings and watching the pennies.
Sure. Yeah, and their proposal is also kind of open-ended because they gave a not to exceed for part
Right.
one. But not to exceed.
Yeah, that means that they could charge us right up to the top.
Yeah, which I'd love to be able to do it for under them. And so.
And there's also, right off the bat, there's a question of, drawings of existing drawings to work from, which I think there's a charge of 2,500, theoretically, 2,500 or to get drawings of the buildings, which I'm not sure we have drawings that would be appropriate for this building or the other two. We don't know where they are.
So the question is whether we approve the proposal as it stands or
Yes,
hold off on
yes.
that.
Because this project is not going to be done if we drag our feet. It
Yeah.
just won't be.
Right, so what's our timeline?
So, well, this was sent a month ago, so it was sent on January 17th. So I am happy to go ahead and sign this if we could vote on that. Saying we do understand this, could send it with a letter, if somebody wanted to help draft one, or just go ahead and do this. And then as we meet, talk about the specifics of what they're doing.
Okay, so can we just talk about phase one of it? Which
Go
is
ahead. Yes, please.
I mean, as a group, I'd like, what do you think about those elements in phase one, Bill, that they've laid out?
Well, I don't think that drawings are necessary.
Okay,
Sketches for details for how to insulate or something like that, maybe, but not like a drawing of the building, that's not, it wouldn't serve any purpose. It would be, it could be helpful if we can find existing drawings, but, I don't think they would use them to do their heat loss calculations. And I'd want to be involved with that material. And it's kind of like,
Right. So the key things could you, my computer's, but, yeah, or just, could you read that, what's in phase one there?
Okay, so, here, let you look at what you're looking for, because I don't know what you're necessarily looking for.
It's where the first
Here.
proposal is for costs. What, so project understanding, well, that defines basically what came out of the audits. But in the task number one is project scoping and conceptual design. Review the proposed work and all available project documents provided by the
Yes, available,
owner.
yes,
That's not that extensive, so that's
okay,
fairly fast for them, I would think. Meet with the owner, discuss intended scope of work, study findings, schedule, and budget. Budget for the project. Yes, we have a budget for the project,
right,
which is the grant,
the
basically.
grant is, yes.
Yeah.
But we know that budget was not well done. We know that budget wasn't well done, so we have to work within the total amount of the grant, but we still do not know what leeway we have to use left pocket money for right pocket
Right.
projects,
Exactly.
basically. But that would, I think, be part of the review. What do we really think, or what do they really think it would cost to do whichever element of the projects? And then if that original consultant project didn't list it properly, we'd have to go back and ask for consideration.
Phase one at a cost up to $16,970.
Mhm.
Basically should give us at the end of it, cost estimates, high level cost estimates, as I said, for proposed changes. And I assume there would be there's documentation referred to for the basis of the cost estimate.
This is gonna be the project schedule,
Yeah,
and cost estimate is in week 9.
yep, there's a
So,
10-week process here.
yeah, so I'm thinking that
Yeah. so
Getting this
that's the
approved
best way to look at it.
doesn't lock us in
Yeah,
Mhm.
to everything.
right.
All right, I would say I would make a motion to approve it, pending Bill's approval in general. Or,
Well,
Negotiation was sent along.
yes, yeah,
Bill will be an integral part of all discussions with Centerline.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
All right. Matthew, did you have any comments or thoughts?
I was gonna second that. I think that's where we're at.
Okay, good. Any other thoughts or comments? If not, call the question. All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I will sign that and get that out.
I think it's the second phase that becomes
Okay.
distinguished. And
Okay.
as Bill says, you say the 16,970 is close to what our soft costs are. I'm not sure that's true.
that's what,
No, our soft costs are about 30.
right, but I thought looking through that, well, I guess from their estimate of both phases that we were right.
Okay.
I guess.
Okay,
that's okay, we don't mind if you save us money.
Yeah, you're welcome to do that.
Well, by saying.
In fact, that's why we're.
I just rather have installation.
All right, let's lock it in.
Okay. Tara says lock it in. All in favor of that motion made by Tara, seconded
We
by.
said that.
We did?
that.
Well,
Now we just gotta do the last thing.
I thought, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the only last thing on the agenda is, and this is not a decision to do this project, to accept this, but we have a potentially pending offer for the village to take possession of the old Chemfab, St. Gobain, whatever the property is down on Water Street. There are lots of potential pitfalls with this, and there are a few potential long-term benefits. My question is, does this board want to consider continue researching this or pass it by?
I would want to continue researching it. I feel like there's something to be done with that space, whether it's in the building or out,
Agreed.
raising it to the ground.
I totally agree with that.
Okay, then I will continue the discussions with the owner and the owner's attorney. The first two things that were suggested is a site visit and obtaining the certificates of compliance for the remediation work that was done on that property as part of the St. Gobain settlement.
Yeah, those would be key.
Yeah.
Those documents and, a site visit, because you have to understand how vast this place is.
I would like to go to the site
And
visit. and the
Current
areas.
condition of.
And current
Yes, yeah.
conditions.
Current condition.
And did Doug, did you say that taxes were paid in full?
Correct, there is no past due taxes on that property.
Which is pretty outstanding.
Yep.
Okay. All right, I will continue working on that and will be reaching out, trust me, to any and all of you for help. Any other business?
Yeah.
8:57.
Motion to adjourn.
I didn't even need to say it. Seconded, all in favor. Thank you all for attending.
Mary.
I did, however, which he's not on here anymore, but I do before we leave, want to say thank you to Robert Novak, who read every single page of the land use, the land use and planning and development regulation, and found every single misspelling and misplaced comma. So thank you. So thank you to Robert. All right, that's the end.
Good for him.
So these are the copies.
Recording stopped.
There you go. Okay, thank you all. Bye, Matthew.
Thank you.
All right.